This flight pattern runs over a very important part of the revitalization of Johnson City. It focuses on Main Street. So we're going to begin this on the eastern end where Main Street and Leicester Avenue connect. And then we're going to fly this all the way down through the downtown over to the western boundary where Johnson City ends on Main Street. Our flight begins at the eastern end of Main Street where it intersects Leicester Avenue. As we look at this area, we'll see a number of landmarks. One that doesn't appear but is important is the arch that welcomes travelers to the home of the square deal with a reference to Endicott Johnson shoes. But if we look in the foreground, we see G.H. Robotics. Then in the back, we see Walmart, a range of other developments. You have a supply company to the right. But now what we're seeing on the left, once we get by the corner of St. James Church, is the Victory Building, which is going to become a number of rental units, I think a large number of rental units. So as we come back up Leicester, we're now going to start on Main Street. It's important to note that Main Street is one of the important foci for redevelopment and revitalization. And so this trip down Main Street is going to show us some of the things that are already going on and some of the issues. But for now, as we start at the Main Street on the eastern end, we need to see the strong presence of St. James Catholic Church, and it's apparent on both sides of the street. In the little plaza at the lower left, there are two functions that are St. James. One is the Knights of Columbus, and the other is their food pantry. So that influence is starting right there. On the right, we have the actual St. James Church. And as we proceed down the street, of course, on the other side of the street, we start to see some other things, like the kind of blue-gray building is a salon, hair salon, but it's got residential on the second floor. And the Rice Funeral Home is a large structure on the left across the street from the other functions of St. James, and that includes a parking lot. And so St. James takes up a substantial part of this area. And as we continue now down the street, we start seeing other landmarks. One on the right is the Verizon building, and that's still functional. Continuing, we see M&T Bank, kind of kitty corner from Verizon. And as we come down here, we will see other kinds of functions as well. Probably one of the more important ones in terms of revitalization is the building on the right that is for sale, and it's empty. It's vacant. As we continue on, we're coming up to the intersection with Avenue A, and we see a couple of things here. One is the Save-A-Lot building on the left, and Healthbeat after that in the Healthbeat food. But as we look here, we start seeing a number of things. One is the large what was a residential structure that is now being prepared for demolition is on the right. And we continue and start seeing a mix of uses. As we pursue this journey, we need to note that there are many vacant structures along the way. For example, at 225, 237, 233, 247, 249, 253, 257, 259, and 290 Main Street, plus the old Fat Cat bookstore. And there are others, like the old Dollar Depot. The hope is that these will be revitalized and lead investors to utilize these vacant structures. As we pause at the intersection of Broad Street and Main Street, we can look back and make the point that there are other apartments and buildings that are already being upgraded. The Moelder apartments on the other end of this street that we pointed out. But there are others on both sides of the street. And as we pause here, it's worth noting that across the street from the Red Robin Diner are two structures that are being renovated by SUNY alums into attractive rentals. So we have this going on, as I say, both sides of the street, and the photos below illustrate this. as we continue down the street, you'll see some of this activity, but we're coming to an important intersection of Arch Street and Baldwin, with both of those streets going to the Health Science Campus and connecting Main Street 1 block away. On the right are some older buildings, but on the left is the Sarah Jane Johnson Methodist Church. After this, we start seeing, again, on the other end of this, the impact of the UHS functions. And there's lots of parking, but also doctors' offices and other functions there. And as we continue down Main Street now going west, we see a change in land use, not just because of the hospital, but because of banks and also of the chain retailers, things like Walgreens, CVS, and McDonald's. And then as we continue down, we start intersecting what will be streets like St. Charles, Allen, Crocker, and these are residential neighborhoods. And these are pretty stable neighborhoods. A little bit of intermixing with residential, multiple family, or renters, even a student rental. But on the whole, they're in good shape and a nice neighborhood. So as we pass the hospital on the left and the chain stores on the right, we're now coming into a residential neighborhood, which we will look at these separately as street segments that connect Main Street with other areas of Johnson City.